Tatyana, can you please introduce yourself with your name and where you're from?
Hi, I'm Tatyana Anderson. I'm from Melbourne, and I've been in Melbourne now for 36 years.
Excellent. And can you please tell me what your creative discipline is?
Okay, I am a third generation couturier. I'm also do silk flowers, which is what I've been doing in Chateau on this residence. I bead, I embroider, I do patterns, so yeah, everything.
Excellent, excellent. Can you tell me about what your creative process is? Do you start from an idea, a colour palette?
Generally, if it's for fashion, I try to start with the fabric, because very often you come up with an idea and then you spend 6 months looking for fabric, so I kind of stopped doing that. So I do tend to start with the fabric, and for me, every time I pick up a fabric, I know what it's going to be, I know what it wants to be. And there has been a funny story when the fabric wanted to be a corset, I wanted a dress. 3 months later, it was made into corset and I wore it once.
There you go.
Yeah, so sometimes better not to argue.
Yeah.
It will get its own way in your way.
Yeah.
For the flowers, because I come from the school of more realistic flowers, I tend to start with a live flower. I tend to take a lot of photos, even if they're not going to be used eventually, but just to understand the structure, the color, the depth, and then the variations. You know, even in camellias, if we talk about doing realistic camellias rather than the Chanel tweed ones, you will notice there is such a large variation. So, you know, you kind of pick what you like, thank God. In flowers, you're allowed to do that. For everything else, it's probably more driven. If we're talking about custom-made clothes, so bespoke, that is very much driven by the clients. They tend to come up either with fabric or with an idea, and then we work with that to make sure that they get their dream garment.
Tell me about what your routine is for your creativity.
Yeah. Basically, there's no routine. Because I also do other work, I have to kind of fit in between a life, unfortunately, sometimes. But what I tend to do is we always have a plan on our whiteboard, and that would cover, you know, at least a month, sometimes 2, because if we have orders, there's obviously deadlines that have to be met. If we're doing a runways or shows, that's also a quite very strict deadline, so those ones usually on the board so people can see what we're working towards. We also tend to, I put a lot of sketches on our inspiration board so everybody can see where we're going and what the next crazy thing that Tatyana gonna make them do. That's why they love me, that's why they work with me. All in all, for me, it's very much ideas can strike any time. Getting inspiration is not my problem. My problem generally is actually, do I have time to implement it, or do I give it to somebody else? And sometimes I do that. If I get an idea that I know I cannot implement and maybe it's not quite my style, I'll pass it on to somebody else. I'll find somebody and go, here, would you like an idea? I have one. Look, again, fabrics, nature, flowers. I do follow runways, so sometimes there's just a small details. Quite a few years ago, there was a skirt that Armani did in their main collection, in their couture collection, that I looked at that and thought, yeah, that's interesting, but I actually want to change it. So it became my Uncle Armani skirt. It was totally different make and everything else, but that was just a moment when it was like, ooh, I would like to try something like that. Yeah.
If you were to be having a conversation with someone who's just like at the beginning of their exploring their creativity, what pearls of wisdom or pearl of wisdom would you want to pass on to them?
Find your crowd, find your supporters. Always don't bother talking to people who don't understand and don't support. They will never change. Just kind of accept it. But find people who will support you, who will be there for you on those days when you kind of go, I don't want to do this anymore. It's going to happen to you, you know. We're all humans. Another thing that I found very important on my second attempt at running a business is to write down why you're doing it. Because again, you're going to have those days when you will be looking at your work and it doesn't matter what it is. And you'll be looking at it and going, it's shit. I'm not good enough. And why am I doing it? And that's when you pull out that piece of paper. You look at it and go, oh yeah, that's why I'm doing it. It'll make your life a little bit easier.
I love that, because a lot of the people I work with, you know, I get them to actually drill down to why they're doing it, because I think once we connect that why, then we actually create more, you know, more things that are personal to us, and where we create better things. Yeah,
and I think that helps also in those days when you go, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know where I'm going, you know, I'm doing this new collection, I don't know what it is. You always want to go back to your why. Are you doing it to sell thousands into, let's say, Maya, or are you doing it to be very small boutique somewhere in the middle of nowhere where people just discover you? Or are you making one-offs and your main purpose in doing it is to create beauty? Why you're doing it? Once you figure that out, everything else is easy.
Yeah, and I think that goes across all of the creative
I think it is.
areas.
Because it's very hard to paint, at least for me, very hard to paint a painting not understanding why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's simply because I want to try a new technique on the flowers, but you know, rather than going and using expensive silk, I'll do it on a piece of paper to see how it looks before I go and start butchering.
And that's what you're doing now.
Well, the moment I'm painting, I've done the experiments and they're already in the bin. So I painted the petals last night, they dried up, and now I can see the little tiny bits that need to be corrected. So I'll go through and fix that up before I will start assembling.
Thank you so much for your time, Tatyana.
My pleasure.